Hello, it's my head here. Right, okay, now so Td5 will keep this simple, and I'll get my head out of the way in a minute. What I want to explain is just the circuit of the fuel system, because this is simple, okay? Instead of having a lift pump that sucks, you have a two-stage pump that pushes diesel to the engine side, which is actually quite efficient because it's controlled by the ECM on this system. So you can diagnose it with electrical faults usually, rather than having to look at mechanical. But like the videos that we've done on the Td5, I explained that we had problems with a vehicle which actually had a faulty pump, and the only real way we could see it is using an oscilloscope to see what amperage draw it had, and a pressure gauge on the fuel regulator to see what it was delivering. Okay, so what I'll do is explain this now. Okay, so what you've got in the tank is a two-stage pump. Now what this does, first of all, you've got your fuel in here and it will pump out, okay, to the diesel filter. Okay, so the direction is this way and it's filtered, and then what happens is the pump will then draw the fuel, excuse me for this, back into itself, okay, and then repressurize it. Excuse me, I got the wrong one there. It's low pressure to here. Okay, and then it's a two-stage pump, so what it does is then pressurize the fuel up to 4 bar, and that'll be through this one, high pressure one, which will then go to the fuel regulator. Okay, now this regulator here, the job is to maintain the pressure in the cylinder head at 4 bar. Alright, so inside the cylinder head there's a load of galleries. The injectors fit into that. There are drillings and there are seals, and some of you probably know that these seals can go and let oil in and mix with the diesel gets in the oil, it can be a problem. Okay, but basically that feeds this constantly. It is a little bit common because it's pressure to all of 5 injectors at the same time. So what you have a pumping device on the injector, which is a push rod pushed by a cam, and it will pressurize the diesel in the body. And then you have a solenoid on top, which when the ECM decides that it wants an injection, it will pulse it. Okay, boom, and then you get a spray of diesel. This is happening very, very quickly and quite often. Okay, any fuel that's left over, if the regulator has got too much fuel, it sends it to the fuel cooler, which you can see down the bottom here. Okay, and then that returns that back to the filter head. Okay, this red one here is an air bleed from the filter head, and basically inside here is an air bleed valve. Now that's a weird one. That's actually some sort of material. When it gets dry, it then starts to bleed the air through. Okay, so that's closed until it needs to bleed, and then that'll go back to the tank. This is a fairly good system. It's still closed. Okay, now, did you understand that? That's part of the fuel system. With this control, because it's got turbo, air control, air induction, and the amount of air that's coming in is important. Okay, what you have here is your ECM. There's a lot of wires going in and there's a lot of wires coming out. Okay, the information that needs to come in is throttle position sensor. Now that is your push your foot on it. I will also say that you need to have this powered up. Yeah, you need the ECM powered up. Okay, so you have your throttle position sensor, which will tell the ECM how much fuel you want, and that does it by voltage value. Okay, you've also got your MAF sensor, it needs to know how much air, and you've also got IAT, which is to do with temperature. Okay, information going in. You've also got your crank position sensor. Now this one is important because, hang on, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll tip the camera down just a little bit, okay, so you can see that. Alright, now, so what you've got is your crank position sensor information going in. This is actually very vital because if this doesn't know where the crank position is, it won't give you anything at all, okay. I won't say any more about that. That's like an ABS sensor. But okay, so you've got information coming in. There's a lot more coming into this ECM. You've got engine temperature as well. What it actually controls, okay, is your fuel pump. That regulates the fuel pump, and that regulates the injectors, okay. Now how this is done with the injectors up here, okay, you've got a 12 volt supply and you've also got your pulse, okay. Now you will not be able to read that with a voltmeter, okay, you have to read it with an oscilloscope. Yeah, you've got your 5 injectors, they've all got a 12 volt to supply the solenoid. The pulse is the one that triggers and lets the diesel inject, okay, very, very quick. You've also got boost control, which is an in and an out. Okay, well I'm going to stop there now. I don't need to talk too much about this because we'll get overcomplicated. If you need some solutions to problems with your Td5, then down below this video there is links to stuff we've done for diagnostics of the electric pump and the fuel regulator, okay, and there are other videos on YouTube which cover changing the seals and the injectors, okay. This system is actually quite beautiful. I like this. This ECM here is adjustable in the some of the, I'll start again, shall I? This ECM here is adjustable and you can reprogram it, you can flash it. There are plenty of people about. One of those is Storm Tuning. He knows his shit, basically. He can get more power out of this because remember, these are adjusted for emissions, okay, and depending on what part of the world you are, depending on how these are set. Now a clever man will be able to reset this to get you more boost and more fuel when you need it, okay. So compared to something like a TDI where you really have to do things, you have to put shims in, change pins and mess about with the fuel pump to get it to do something, and you also need to up the turbo pressure. This thing is controlling. This is a good thing. This is like getting your wife on steroids. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It gets better with the Puma, and well, it's actually a Ford Transit engine. It's a Ford engine. They're not the best, but they work. The concern here with emissions was is it Euro 3? Euro 2, Euro 3 or Euro 4? The emissions weren't so strict. Now it's Euro 6 and it's getting higher now. That's becoming a very big concern. So obviously as mechanics we have to continually keep learning about the systems, what they do. They'll throw the next thing at us, we then have to relearn. If for instance like yourselves, you DIY people, this is a big learning curve and it's worth sitting there with a workshop manual. This Td5 information, if you're in the UK and you want a workshop manual, I'll put a link on the screen, or I'll show you the workshop manual I've got, which is the Defender one. If you go for the Discovery Td5 workshop manual, that won't have the Td5 in it. The American, it will be a NAS one, which is the rave disc. It always seems to be the Yank ones for some reason, and they haven't got the Td5 information in unless you buy the book. Yeah. But you can download the Defender one and look at that. That has relevant information in it, so that's worth considering, okay? Because in the manual it will do a description of each of the components in the fuel system. It will then give you, it will take you further on so you understand the components and then you can start to work them out. Sometimes with diagnostics it's a process of elimination. If you've got a crank signal and it won't start, then it's not the crank sensor, is it? But this is where it comes to. You've got to learn how to test the crank sensor and not through a scanner. Yeah, a scanner won't tell you. whereas an oscilloscope will. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. All right, I'm going to go back one in a minute and talk about the 300 TDI EDC. Yeah, because I forgot to mention that. I know it's a bit of a bad boy there, but I forgot to mention it. So I'll go back and then just do a quick overview of that, okay?